evening of the 12th of February 1942, a Hampden aircraft took off from RAF Wigsley, 2 miles southwest of Eagle, to take part in Operation Fuller. Operation Fuller was set up by the Royal Navy to destroy the German battleships, which were causing damage to the Atlantic convoys, bringing vital supplies to Britain. 3 of these German battleships had entered the harbour at Brest for repairs, and on the night of the 11th of February made a historic dash to return to Germany along with 66 more battleships, and with air cover they reached the Dover Straits virtually undetected. As a last resort, the largest bomber command operation of the war up to that time took place. 242 British aircraft were sent out against the battleships, but all to no avail. Our Hampden plane was one of these that set off on a mine-laying sortie, but developed engine problems and had to turn back for Wigsley. The plane crashed on its downwind circuit with an engine on fire, killing all the crew. The plane came to rest in a farm orchard in the centre of the village, near to the farmhouse. It is reported that during the crash, a mine on board had broken away from its moorings and came to rest near the stricken aircraft, and shortly afterwards this exploded, causing much damage to the centre of the village, as roofs were blown off and windows shattered. Amazingly, no one in the village was injured, as villagers were evacuated before the mine exploded. Mr. Charles Parkes, who was on duty as a fire warden that night, realised the dangers and helped with the swift evacuation. Mr. Parkes received a commendation for his brave actions from the Chief Constable of Lincolnshire. We want to tell the story of these 4 brave airmen and place a memorial in the churchyard for them to be remembered with honour.
Sergeant George Arthur Metcalfe, aged 29, was a Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve. He came from Hackney in London. He was the eldest of 4 brothers. He was an air gunner on the aircraft, and he is remembered with honour at Edmund Cemetery in Middlesex, England. He died on the 13th of February 1942 at Eagle Village.
Sergeant Bernard James Hotwood was a Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve. He was 26 years old and came from South Africa. He was the navigator on the plane. He was the son of James and Eileen Lavinia Hotwood and husband to Flora Elizabeth Hotwood of Springstown, South Africa.
Flight Sergeant John Bernard Kennedy was in the Royal New Zealand Air Force. He was 26 years old. He was the pilot of the plane. He was the son of Patrick and Ethel Kennedy of Christchurch, Canterbury, New Zealand. He trained as a pilot in 1940 and came to England in March 1941. In July 1941, he joined 8-3 Squadron and flew 11 operations on the Hampden plane. In September 1941, he joined 455 Squadron. He died on the 13th of February 1942 in Eagle Village. He has a war grave at the Newark-on-Trent Cemetery in Nottinghamshire. When I went to the Bomber Command Centre, it made me think of my great-grandfather, who flew in the Lancaster.
I was in bed and I was woken by the noise of this aeroplane coming, and then the room was brilliantly lit up as it went past on fire, and then the next thing it stopped. It had crashed in the farmyard the other side of the road.
The actual crash site was just here. It was quite a big crater when they went round to have a look. It was a lot deeper than what we expected it would be, and the site smelt very much of hydraulic fluid and aviation.
When the bomber crashed in the village, it unfortunately crashed in my back garden, and it took the top of the cart shed off. Everybody wanted to go and have a look at it, and we knew there was an unexploded mine on it. My father kept everybody away, and about 4 o'clock in the morning this landmine went off.
The slim and compact fuselage of the aircraft was quite cramped, wide enough only for a single person. The navigator sat behind the pilot, and access in the cockpit required folding down the seats. Once in place, the crew had almost no room to move and were typically uncomfortable during long missions. Air crews referred to the Hampden by various nicknames due to this, such as Flying Suitcase, Panhandle, and Flying Tadpole. A quote by Wilfred John Lewis: "I did my first flight and first tour on Hampdens. A beautiful aeroplane to fly, terrible to fly in. Cramped, no heat, no facilities where you could relieve yourself. You got in there and you were stuck there. The aeroplane was like a fighter. It was only 3 feet wide on the outside of the fuselage, and the pilot was a very busy person."
Sergeant William Leonard Kelly, aged 21, was a Royal Air Force Voluntary Reserve. He came from England. He was a wireless operator and a gunner. He has a war grave in St Thomas Churchyard in Ashton in Makerfield. He was the son of Edward and Ellen Kelly of Ashton in Makerfield. He died on the 13th of February 1942 in Eagle Village. I think he must have been very brave.